Ballot item number 66, Order M-135, second reading of Bill 135, an act to protect pupils with asthma. Mr. Ure.
The member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you, Speaker. I move second reading of Bill 135, an act to protect pupils with asthma.
Mr. Urick has moved second reading of Bill 135, an act to protect pupils with asthma. Pursuant to Standing Order 98, the member has 12 minutes for his presentation. Mr. Urick.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you very much. I stand today. I'm proud to bring forth my second private member's bill since I've been elected at this legislature. And really, the other name for this bill is Ryan's Law, and it's basically in memory of Ryan Gibbons, a young boy, 12 years old in my riding. Last year, Ryan got up like every 12-year-old boy, got ready for school, and headed out. His mom said goodbye, see you after school. And Ryan headed off to school. He had music class, in which he played the trombone. He had a little bit of a cold coming on, and he went outside for recess on his nutritional break. During recess, the boys were playing soccer, and he started not feeling too well, so he thought he'd better head into the school, most likely, obviously, to go get his puffer, for Ryan had asthma. Unfortunately, Ryan didn't even make it to the office, and unfortunately, he didn't make it home that night. And I think for his mom, Sandra, is here today. We thank you very much for coming. That's just not the right order of things to happen in this life. The kids aren't supposed to go before the parents. So we're here, we can do something good for Ontarians. I'll be okay in a second. Kind of touchy. We'll be doing something good for Ontarians in this province. And if we take care of our kids, and if it's something just as minor as fixing the policy and standardizing it across this province, we can do that here, and we should do that here today.
Absolutely.
So I thank Sandra for your courage for coming forward. You're an advocate for your son, and you're an advocate for all the kids in our school systems today. I'd also like to thank the Lung Association for their ongoing drive to ensure we have an asthma strategy for this province. Today we have Sherry Zarnes and Andrea Stevens-Levine here today. Thank you very much for coming forward, supporting us today through this process, and continue to support us as we carry on. I'd also like to thank Speaker Dave Levac, who was instrumental in helping point us in the right direction in developing this bill. Speaker Levac was the one who brought forward Sabrina's Law to help our children with anaphylactic situations in our schools. I'd also like to take this time to thank the teachers in our school system who now do what they need to do to keep our kids with asthma safe and keep all our children safe. I'm going to do a shout out to my daughter's teacher she's in grade 4 this year, but I want to thank Mrs. Keogh, her JK teacher, Mrs. LaRue, her SK teacher, she wasn't in the FDK system at the time, Mrs. Burgess, her grade 1 teacher, Mrs. Marcinkowitz, who taught her grade 2, and because she liked Maggie so much, she got her for grade 3. And currently, my daughter is being taught by Mr. Brock Austin, who taught me grade 8. So wow. I thank them very much for keeping my daughter safe and teaching them well and teaching them how to be good people. I'd also want to do a shout out to Mrs. Walt. If anybody who's a parent knows, the way to get things done in the schools is become best friends with the secretary. They run the world, and I tell you, Mrs. Walt takes care of every single kid that comes through that door. Speaker, asthma affects as many as 1 in 5 children. That's quite an amount when you think about it when you go across the province. And the problem is asthma and its treatment has evolved over the last few years. Kids before were unable to participate in certain situations at school or participate in sports because asthma was a problem. But medical technology has come forward. And since I was been a pharmacist for, I don't know, since 1995. So I'm done doing math. I'm now an MPP.
18.
But however,
18 years.
18 years. And I've seen the progression of medications become available. The inhaled steroids have improved in the effectiveness. There are fewer side effects along with them. They're lasting 12 hours a day. So basically kids that are on steroid inhalers don't need to take them at school. They can take them in the morning and take them at night. The fast-acting medications have improved. They've come up with new forms. A turbo inhaler, you don't even have to press the button anymore. You have to have strong breath to inhale it. So treatment has improved. It's allowed our kids to become more involved in our schools. And unfortunately, and it's nobody's fault, but our policy hasn't come forward. And I think this is where we need to go forward, is change the policy so that it's standard across the province, so that kids in Timmins are having the same policy of the kids in London, who are going to have the same policy of the kids in Windsor, and that is a safe school for our kids with asthma.
Absolutely.
And the thing I have to let people know that maybe are concerned that the puffers are going to be used regularly and routinely. I tell you, if a child is accurately prescribed and treated on their medication, the use of inhalers is minimal. It's not going to be a daily occurrence. It might be twice a week, once a week. If they're bad, if they're catching a cold, sure, they might have to use it a few times a day. However, typically it's not going to be a daily usage. And the one thing out of this bill that I really want to press forward is the puffers need to be on the student. And I think across the province, any parent you talk to, they will agree with me that the puffer needs to be in their pocket. And it's not only in the classroom that might have an asthma attack, or in gym class, which might have a class, as happened with poor Ryan out in the schoolyard, might occur. But however, other aspects of having this puffer in their pocket is if they're a bus student. What happens if they're on the bus heading home? If the policy of the school is that the puffer is locked in the office, they're not going to have it on them. Or what happens if they're walking home? Many of our kids do walk home. If they're bringing on a cold or that, what do they do if they undergo an asthma attack? If they're allowed to have the puffer in their pocket or in their bag or what have you, it'll be on them, and they know what to do when they get that tight feeling in their chest. I think this day and age, if family goes out to Canada's Wonderland, that puffer is on them. If your son or daughter's outside playing, the puffer's on them. There's no reason at all why that puffer can't be on them when they're at school. My bill does aim to protect children with asthma because it's going to create a standardized guideline school boards will adhere to when devising asthma protocol. I'll go over my 4 points that will come up through what the bill is trying to come out with. Strategies to reduce the risk of exposure to asthma triggers in the classroom. A communication plan for the dissemination of information on asthma to parents, pupils, and employees. Regular training on recognizing and managing asthma for all employees that interact with students with asthma on a regular basis. And as I said before, require schools to allow children to carry their reliever puffers at all times, provided they do have their doctor's permission. The other thing that this bill will come forward is the principal will develop a file in conjunction with their family physician that has emergency procedure for that student and directions on where the spare medication is stored. I think we do have to come forward that there should be a spare puffer, and I agree that one should be somewhere safe and stored away so that it is accessible in case the puffer runs out, the puffer breaks, the student loses it. That can all happen. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is another tool that we're giving to the Ministry of Education to help protect our students. Speaker Levac brought forth Sabrina's Law to take care of anaphylaxis for students. This law, Ryan's Law, is going to take care of our students with asthma. I hope the Ministry will accept and use this tool. But I would call for the Ministry to come forward and come with a comprehensive bill that includes not only asthma and anaphylaxis, but diabetes and epilepsy. We've had other people commenting through me that this is our other concerns. Is put together it all as one bill. I'm pretty sure you would get support across all three parties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good point. There are some schools are doing it. Again, that's just a process of standardizing to ensure that students who are getting excellent education in Ottawa have excellent education in Thunder Bay at the same time that those students who have asthma are treated the same across the board, so that our students can continue to enjoy gym class, can continue to join recess. If
kids can be kids.
Kids can be kids. That's a good point. If kids' asthma is under control and there's good monitoring and education going on, there's no reason why their absenteeism should decrease over time. Keep them out of school. When they go on school trips, that puffer is going to be on their pocket in case they take their trip to the Toronto Zoo, whatever. You never know what's going to spark up an asthma attack. As I said, there's many colds and flus in the school system, and this is just a safeguard. I think it'll make teachers at ease at their school day to know that They know all they can know to help that student in case of an asthma attack. There's a procedure in place to help that student out, and they know that student knows what to do when they're feeling the asthma coming along, and they can just ensure that that student gets the opportunity to use their puffer, and if need be, they need extra help, the teacher knows what to do at the next step, which would involve the staff in ensuring the student is taken care of. So in my final few minutes here, again, I want to thank the Lung Association for coming out today. You've been an awesome support for us, and Sandra and family, I really appreciate working with you. We're going to do what we can to pass this bill today, and I look forward to the debate that's going to come forward, because I think there can be some good discussion heading out. I've had some good letters and emails about what people want to talk about when it hits committee, and I hope it does hit committee. So thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. For the debate, the member for Kitchener-Waterloo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it is obviously an honor and a privilege to stand in this House and discuss an important piece of legislation. New Democrats are proud to support the second reading of bill. We will be supporting this bill as it moves forward and get it to committee. As the former president of the Ontario Public School Boards Association, I did want to talk broadly about the impact of a piece of legislation like this. It is very true that school boards and individual schools have been adapting to a number of health issues that face our students each and every day. If you were to walk into most schools in the province of Ontario today, you would see a number of pictures of students in the office and a list of what medications they are on and what issues they face. You will also see that sometimes there are some parental restrictions with those children. There is a concerted effort, I think, on the part of school boards across this province to ensure the safety of our students. And I do believe that this has come about through progressive pieces of legislation like this. And I do want to thank the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London, and I certainly want to thank Ryan's mother and family for being here to support this piece of legislation, because this is actually how progressive change happens. And this is a privilege that we have as legislators in the province of Ontario, is that we have the opportunity to raise the awareness on certain issues, to give profile to issues that are currently not always understood, or the impact of those illnesses in this case fully understood. And I think that what underpins this entire debate, or what should underpin this debate, is that when we as parents, because I'm a parent of a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, when we send our children off to school, we are transferring a level of trust, if you will, to that school. And part of transferring trust is ensuring that the school has all the information that they need, and that we as parents have conveyed all the information that we need to share with the parent. What Bill 135 sort of establishes is a common understanding. And I think that that is so important for that transfer of trust, if you will. The school obviously needs to have a full understanding of the health needs of those children that are entering their doors. Parents need to understand what sort of services their children will have as they enter those doors of the school. And I do believe that the public education system on the whole in the province is genuinely moving to a perspective on education which incorporates the whole child. And I know that the Ontario Public School Boards Association, we were really pushing this ministry to adapt to that concept, which is, you consider the mental health needs, you consider the physical needs, you consider some of the illnesses, you make accommodations for those children with special needs. And you make sure that those children who are entering your school at the beginning of the day are healthy and enriched and better for the knowledge that they accumulated during the day as they go back home. And that is really about relationship building, actually, in education. And many boards across the province have come to understand this. What 135 does, Bill 135 establishes, though, is truly a framework and an understanding and a clear establishment of the facts. And I do think, though, as it gets to second reading, like any piece of legislation, there will be opportunities to make it stronger. Certainly, our understanding that this bill didn't have as much input as it could from the very people who will be on the front line. So the Elementary Teacher Federation, they need to have everything that they need in place to ensure that they will be delivering the best kind of health intervention if needed. And while we understand that FO is supportive of this bill, as of course they would be, and actually OSSTF was here today and we talked about this bill and when they came to meet with me as well. And their only concern is that they have the resources that they need in place to ensure that student safety is paramount. And so while we understand that FO is supportive of this bill and support healthy work and learning places, there may be specific comments that I think that we perhaps could strengthen this as it goes forward. There are issues, of course, that would benefit through a thorough discussion in committee, as there always is. Medical interventions, some people in this House may not fully realize it, medical interventions are becoming more commonplace in our schools. And disturbingly, and this may be something that will come up through second committee, is that there is also an affordability aspect. Not all students in our schools in the province of Ontario have the resources to actually have the drugs that they actually need. And this places a whole new level of stress and tension in what should be a very positive and proactive learning environment. So there's a lot of I actually applaud the member for bringing forward this piece of legislation, because it also gives us the opportunity to talk about the environmental impact, which has greatly negatively impacted children in the province of Ontario, and that is around air quality and those environmental illnesses that have become more and more prevalent in the province. And I do think that it's incumbent on us as legislators to increase our understanding, to ensure, of course, that we bring a new level of compassion in every circumstance with every student and every child into the system. So, of course, we will be supporting this private member's bill. We look forward to it getting to second to the committee level, where we hope to ensure that going forward, it's as strong as that can be, because that is our shared responsibility in this place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. For the debate, the Minister of Education.
Yes, thank you very much, Speaker, and I'm very pleased to join the debate on Bill 135, Ryan's Law, that's been tabled by the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London. And I'd like to begin by saying to Ryan's family, certainly our sympathy and our heart goes out to you for the experience that you've had, and thank you for your advocacy on behalf of children with asthma. I've certainly not had that experience in my family, but when I was a child, one of my best friends actually had very severe asthma, and it was the day before pharmacists dispensed puffers, and he had a number of very serious episodes, and in those days you ended up in an iron lung or an oxygen tent. So I've had some history with families that had really serious experiences with asthma. So I got a little bit of an understanding of how you can go from a child who's running around on the playground and joining in with everybody else. I actually have a scar over one eyebrow from his, 7th or 8th birthday party, and I got stepped on at the skating rink. But the point being, he was out there skating around with everybody else. But then, a couple of weeks later, he'd be in very serious distress. So certainly we need to take very seriously the problem of children who have asthma and other diseases which are episodic and potentially life-threatening. And Bill 135 has been modeled, and the member mentioned the assistance from the Speaker, because it was the Speaker who originally brought us the Sabrina's Law, which had to do with anaphylaxis, and which did get passed here and did come into into effect. And what Sabrina's law requires and what Bill 135 would require is a communication plan, an individual pupil plan, a file for each pupil with asthma, obligations for parents to keep the information up to date, an immunity clause for persons acting in good faith. And people may think that's rather a strange thing. But one of the concerns that staff in schools have is they're not medical. They don't have the knowledge to be medical caregivers. And there's always the concern that if they step in as good Samaritans, as it were, to work with a student who's in distress, they may not get it exactly right medically because they're not medical practitioners. So that indemnity is actually a very important piece of the puzzle. So there's a number of things here that are in the bill that are modeled on the previous bill that we have. Just to give a bit of information to people about some of the things that have been going on in the government around the whole issue of kids with asthma. The Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, working with the Public Health School Asthma Program, provided comprehensive asthma support, and that includes policy development, staff in service, parent awareness, knowledge building events, and help with students to self-manage their asthma. And they partnered with four health units with their coterminous school boards. So that pilot took place in Durham region, Halton region, Hamilton, and Sudbury in the public health/school boards in that area. So we've got some learnings and some experience from those pilots that the Ministry of Health conducted around managing this in schools. We also have had a school-based program which was developed by the Ontario Lung Association, who have been recognized here today, and the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association, which I'll talk about as APHEA. Who developed a guide called 7 Simple Steps to Make Schools Asthma Friendly, and its purpose is to help principals and teachers recognize and respond to the need of children with asthma. So that guide has been out, was released actually on May the 7th of this year, so last spring, and is now available for schools, for principals and teachers really all over Ontario to get some guidance. So the guide is based actually on the previous research that I mentioned by those health units and their experience, and it recommends that all schools establish a process to identify students with asthma. And the member from Kitchener-Waterloo talked about the work that schools often do in identifying students with asthma and other health risks so that school staff know who they are. Ensuring that students have easy access to their prescribed inhaler or puffer, as we tend to prefer to refer to it. And that's a point that, and at this point I'm really going back to my experience as a trustee and how important it is once a child is old enough to self-manage, old enough to manage the puffer, or in the case of anaphylaxis, old enough to manage the EpiPen, that the student be able to have the puffer or the EpiPen, whatever it is, the medication and some other diseases on their person. Because when we've had really tragic circumstances, it often is the case that when whatever happened, the EpiPen, the puffer, wasn't with the child. So there really does seem to be good evidence that as soon as the child is able to manage their own medication, that it's important that they have the puffer or the EpiPen on their person. That staff should know how to recognize and manage worsening symptoms and asthma attacks. So there's some really good work that has been done in this asthma area of asthma. The concern that I would have is that we have a bill that is anaphylaxis specific. We have a bill now here that is asthma specific. We've had bills tabled previously, I think, that were diabetes specific. We've had bills that were specific to a variety of diseases, and we would be a little concerned that what we maybe really need is an umbrella bill that carries a variety of things instead of one at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate? The member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Thanks, Speaker. And I want to commend my colleague from Elgin, Middlesex, London for this asthma bill. And it's difficult to put in words anything that would make sense to young Ryan Gibbons' mom, Sandra. Sandra's done a beautiful job transforming her pain into action so that tragic incidents like Ryan's can be reduced, ideally eliminated. My assistant's son is a normal 8-year-old boy. He plays sports and gets dirty. He's also asthmatic. His mom says that when he declines, people don't often understand the urgency or the seriousness of the episode or the attack. And Ryan's Law will hopefully change this, so that not only teachers, principals, but all support staff, parents, anyone on school property can have a better understanding of this lung disorder. And I'll pick up on what the minister just indicated. Let's also look at revisit peanut allergies, also epilepsy and diabetes. In May 2005, the Ontario government passed Bill 3 to protect anaphylactic pupils, brought forward by the member for Brant, Sabrina's Law, in honor of Sabrina Shannon. It requires every school board establish and maintain a policy. It requires principals to develop individual plans for pupils at risk. I understand it was the first legislation in the world to protect children with these kinds of life-threatening allergies. We have to take this further. I'd like to see this government pass legislation. We've seen an indication that would pull it all together: allergies, asthma, epilepsy, diabetes, rather than this piecemeal, almost reactive approach. School children with epilepsy often require Ativan. I've recently received an email informing me there are still families who struggle to get their school board to administer Ativan to epileptic children. My family, we went through this a number of years ago. Thank God for the school secretary. She stepped up to the plate for our family. Ativan is a potentially life-saving drug. Similar, Canadian Diabetes Association. I read this in a backgrounder. It should not matter where you go to school, but for children with type 1 diabetes, it does. Except for New Brunswick's education policy 704, there really are no provincial policies or regulations requiring school boards or schools to accommodate or protect students with diabetes. And again, we're back to that patchwork approach, varying standards of care, gaps in care, varies from school board to school board, even from school to school within the same board. So in closing, I'm asking this House, support this bill. Let's work together and include as many other issues and ailments in this bill within a piece of government legislation so that we can protect as many children as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. For the debate, the member for Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to start off by saying, on behalf of Andrea Horvath and the entire New Democratic Party, our prayers and our love go out to you and to Ryan's family and to Sandra. There's nothing worse. I can't imagine anything worse than what you've gone through. And the fact that you are here, turning that tragedy into something positive is nothing short of amazing, and we commend you. So I want to say thank you to you. And of course, as you've heard, we are going to support this bill. There's no question about that. If I say anything about it, it's really only to strengthen it, to make sure that if it goes to committee and that amendments are made, that it becomes a stronger, more workable bill. Sam Hammond, who is the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, sent a letter around this bill. And, one of his concerns, and I want to voice this concern because it is a real concern, you heard it, I think, expressed by the Minister of Education, certainly ours as well. There's just a general concern about all of the medical conditions that many of our students face and teachers' ability and educational workers' ability to handle them. Let's put this in context. We are in a school board time and a school time, an educational system time, where the old Harris funding formula is still in place, where our schools are chronically underfunded, where there aren't enough adults in the classrooms, in the schoolyards, in the lunchrooms. Not the same number that there were at one time. When I have children in the 30s, and when they went to school, there were a lot more adults in the school system than there are now. Those adult eyes, trained eyes, we hope, in light of this bill, are absolutely necessary. I also have within my jurisdiction a school, Parkdale Public School, and I give them a shout out, where a horrific tragedy happened. Caitlin Sampson, a young woman, was killed by her foster family. When the school guidance counselor phoned her home, they were told she's fine. She was part First Nations, that she's back on the reserve. There was a time when you would send someone out to that home, when we had that kind of staffing that someone could follow up if the child didn't come to school. Those people aren't there anymore. They're not there anymore. We can't follow up the way we once could. So this speaks to a deficit in our system, not to mention the state of the school buildings. Now, depending on where you live, certainly in my riding, these are not the same school buildings my children went to. Many of them have capital deficits that they've had for a long time. They're not in good shape. The air quality is not good. Repairs need to be made. Again, this is not the ideal surrounding for a child with a medical condition, who's asthmatic. My son had asthma when he grew up, not nearly as serious as some children. He had friends, but again, the rates were much lower then, too. So, again, more adult supervision, more funding generally into the school, and that will really buttress and make stronger the member from Elgin Middlesex London, and I want to give him kudos because this is exactly what we should be doing here, this kind of bill. Our hope in the New Democratic Party is simply to make it as strong and workable as possible. And when you have overworked teachers, not enough education assistants, not enough guidance counselors or special ed teachers or programs, not enough capital funding into the schools, larger than desirable classrooms, the idea of adding something else into a teacher's demands to medical, to again put into place any medical program, is undercut by that. It's undermined by that. So yes, we support it, absolutely. Just to finish off, I just again want to say, on behalf of all New Democrats, on behalf of our leader, we are so proud of you for being here. We are so proud of you for instigating this bill and for your activism. Our souls ring with yours in this moment, and we wish what happened to your son should never happen to another child. And I think your presence here makes that more possible. Thank you.
Thank you. For the debate, the member for Etobicoke North.
Thank you, Speaker. As a physician, as a parliamentarian, as well, by the way, as a lecturer in asthma, I'd at the outset, of course, j'ai le plaisir de soutenir.
I have the pleasure of supporting Bill 135.
Jeff Urich, and also like to acknowledge Ryan's family for their presence and their moral support. I'd also like to introduce and re-welcome, sitting in double galleries, the opposition gallery has been mentioned, Andrea Stevens-Levine and Sherry Zarins, to be joined as well by my colleagues at the Ontario Lung Association, Dilshad Musa, who's joined by her niece visiting from South Africa, Leila Qasim. I would simply say that a very important issue, as has been mentioned, an increase is upon us in asthma, whether it's allergic triggers, whether it's, for example, pollution-based, plastics in the workplace, home renovations, the insulation, you name it, the long-lost pet who will not be turned out of doors, but nevertheless continues to flare up allergies of the family. Many, many reasons, and all these things act as a confluence. My colleague said that students should be allowed to keep the puffer in the pocket. I would support that. I would, though, with respect, like to say this blue puffer, though offering immediate relief, Ventolin or salbutamol, is to be used only as a rescue inhaler, only as an emergency inhaler, not as the underlying therapy of asthma. And I repeat that for all Ontarians. The underlying therapy for asthma are what we call anti-inflammatories, fancy word for stuff like Flovent or Symbicort, Zenhale, other medications. That actually puts out the fire that's going on in the lungs, helps to dry the phlegm, the mucus, the crud that's actually in the lungs. And that, because that's the actual underlying disease. This is only a PEP, it's kind of PEP for a while. Very important, can be an emergency level therapy, but it's very important to understand the underlying therapy of asthma. So you're not probably going to be carrying just one puffer, most likely, but that still remains to be seen. It is true that I would support this issue of having schools have a process procedure, because typically what happens is kid is somewhat embarrassed about having this condition, certainly doesn't want to self-administer the puffer of whatever color in front of folks, has a bit of an attack, a need, a wheeze, a cough, phlegm in the chest, and basically goes and sequesters himself, and maybe is found either unconscious or lying, in a corner in the washroom, in a stall, etc. And that's the worst case scenario that can happen in an asthmatic situation. So, puffers are very important. I would also support of course, the Minister of Education. This is probably beyond the expertise of principals and the school communities alone. The action plan, whether it's the green, yellow, or red zone, which we can provide to every asthmatic patient for free, courtesy of the Ontario Lung Association, is something that should be written, understood by the family, perhaps even the student, and that can be certainly part of the file and part of the overall plan protocol should there be an attack, meaning, if this happens, then do that. But this is definitely likely beyond the expertise, first of all, of the principal of school communities, and is, of course, something we at the Lung Association are encouraging physicians to do more of at the family practice as well as certainly at the specialist level. So, triggers of allergies are there. There are certainly many, many confluences that act. The river runs through it, again, whether it's pollution, winter weather, the pets. By the way, asthmatic kids and probably asthmatic patients in general should get the flu shot so that we can live and breathe easily. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. For the debate, the member from Burlington.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I'd first like to thank Mrs. Gibson as well. I commend you for your strength and courage, and no one should ever bury a child, and Brian is definitely in our thoughts today. And I'd also like to thank the Lung Association. We do take for granted all the time how we breathe if we're not in that position. And until you're in that position, it's very hard to understand how you feel when you are gasping for air. I think I want to actually speak up, just kind of go a bit further with what we were just hearing. I think with my, it's very hereditary in my family. My father had emphysema at the age of 52 and died, and had a puffer in his hand every 2 minutes. And my aunt was the same. And my daughter, very young, was very asthmatic, and we used to have a nebulizer that we would actually carry around with us at the time. And I think it's educating yourselves on what actually it is that you can do, because I can be quite frank and tell you, I don't know how many doctors I went to, and I was like, is it the blue, the orange, is it the puffer? I was so confused as a parent. And I used to seriously phone over to the drugstore to say, look, I don't know which one I'm supposed to be giving. And the education of trying to learn that as a parent, I can't imagine how a child would feel trying to figure that out when we as parents are not educated properly on what we're supposed to be giving. And we're at physicians, we're going from one to the next trying to get the answers for these children that are deer in a headlight when they're grasping for air. So I think that's the first and foremost, and I think I actually want to commend my colleague from Elgin Middlesex London for bringing this bill forward, because it's all about educating ourselves and knowing what to do. And if I say anything here today, children have to have a safe place where they can go, and when you're young and don't understand the ramifications when you're breathing, and is this at a bad spot, is it not at a bad spot, because we as parents, I can tell you numerous times, my daughter, I thought she was fine, you know, and then I go in the middle of the night and you can see she was like blue. So, I mean, as a parent, I thought I was on it 90% of the time, but clearly with not getting the proper information from doctor after doctor, I was not. So I think that's very important that, you know, even in this day and age, that we get the information that we need, and proper information, that people that actually talk about it know what they're saying, instead of just surmising through a blue and here's two orange, and then if that doesn't work, you know, here's a tube one that you can take. Because you watch even my dad, I mean, my dad was 52 years old. I mean, he was taking puffers every 2 minutes, and I don't even know half the time if he even knew what he was doing, except he was gasping for air. But then, you know, then 2 minutes later, you know, he says he's not feeling good, and I go over to get him over at the drugstore, and they're zipping him up in a black bag because he's had cardiac arrest from his breathing over there. So today, I'm grateful for this. I think children have to have a safe haven where they can actually go when they feel distressed, because they're not always sure that they are in distress. And they're able to go in and get the help that they need without panicking on where that is to go. So thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity to speak today. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. It's very commendable of you, and by no means do I know how you feel, because I do not, but I only imagine the pain that you have, and thank you for this today.
Thank you. The member for Chatham-Kent, Essex.
Thank you, Speaker. It's my honor and privilege to rise today and stand in support of the member for Elgin Middlesex London's Bill 135, better known as Ryan's Law. As my colleague stated so passionately in his opening remarks, this bill was inspired by the loss of 12-year-old Ryan Gibbons. Ryan was a typical young boy who loved keeping active, riding his bike, playing with friends. His asthma didn't seem to slow him down. Like many children, he suffered an asthma attack. Sadly, Ryan passed away. His mother, Sandra, then took it upon herself, with support from her family, to champion the issue and to help protect all of our children. Ryan's Law has a noble purpose: to make all schools across the province asthma-friendly environments. Addressing asthma is something that each of us should take very seriously. An individual in Ontario has a 34% risk of developing asthma before they reach 80 years of age. And what we see when we look across this province is patchwork of asthma policy. This is because there are currently no standards for asthma planning, and school boards are left to develop their own plans. What this bill sets out to do is to help out with these standards. Now, as the PC critic for sport, recreation, and youth, I support this bill wholeheartedly. We must do all we can to protect the children of to protect the health of our children and to help them maintain healthy lives. I had a staffer who grew up with asthma, and he told me that as a kid he wanted to make sure that his asthma never got in the way of him being a kid. Well, he was lucky enough to avoid any major attacks. So again, Speaker, I want to applaud the member from Elgin Middlesex London and Ryan's mother and the Ontario Lung Association for working tirelessly to improve the health of our children. Let's work together in this legislature, and let's get this bill passed after second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate? The member for Huron Bruce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to stand and join the debate today as a member of the Healthy Lung Caucus that I believe my colleague from Durham is a member of as well. It's a nonpartisan organization that is in place due to the vision of the Ontario Lung Association, and we certainly appreciate their efforts to make people more aware of the hazards associated with breathing. And I say that sincerely because I've experienced firsthand the terror in eyes when someone can't get their breath. There's no worse feeling than that. And the fact of the matter is, this bill is so important. I'm reflecting on my father, but I think of my friend Paula, and I think about my childhood friend Melanie, who lost her husband to an asthma attack as well. Darn it, I gotta learn how not to do this. But it's such a touching experience. And I think of Brenda Cumming. She is such a champion for healthy breathing for people of all ages. And we have to do this. And today, we can do such a good thing as a minority government. We can stand as Breathers United and do the right thing and get this through to committee. And I just want to say that it's important to remember that asthma can be managed and quality of life can be so good, but we have to have the right support mechanisms in place and the right support infrastructure. And this is what this bill is intending to do in memory of Ryan, and as a tip of the hat and a tribute to the advocacy that Ryan's mom has put forward so selfishly. And Mr. Speaker, I think we're on to a very good thing, and I congratulate the member from Elgin Middlesex London. He has led by his heart with this piece of legislation, and by doing so, I believe that Ryan Gibbons' legacy will be a healthy and safe learning environment for students that suffer with asthma in all schools across the province. And I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing today in debate, because it sounds like everybody's on the right track. And this piece of legislation through committee and a lot of good heartfelt effort could expand to kids with epilepsy, to kids with diabetes, so that a healthy, safe environment for all students could ultimately be Ryan Gibbons' legacy. So thank you very much, everyone. To our member from Elgin Middlesex London, congratulations.
Thank you. The member for Elgin Middlesex London, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Speaker, and to my colleague from Huron Bruce, you're shattering our evil hearts we have on the PC caucus. We're a party of compassion, and thank you very much. I'd like to thank the members from Kitchener-Waterloo, the Minister of Education, member from Haldimand Norfolk, member from Parkdale Hyde Park, member from Burlington, Chatham, Kent, Essex, of course, Huron Bruce. And of course, the member from Etobicoke North, who taught me a new medical term today, crud. I'm going to go to my medical dictionary and look that up.
I know
very much. I want to say this bill does one thing. It's increasing awareness. It's increasing the education to our parents, students, and educators. And basically, for Mr. Hammond, I'm looking forward to meeting with him. I've made contact with his office. Nothing's really going to be changing from what's currently occurring right now with children with asthma. Right now, the children have to leave the class if that's the policy, to go to the office. This allows them to, instead of leaving the class, reach in their pocket and give themselves a puff. I'm pretty sure the FDK students who might need some assistance are already getting the assistance they need in classrooms, so that's not going to, we can alleviate those fears. We can work with ETFO and ensure that that's done. With regards to the principals, I certainly don't expect the principals to do this on their own. The bill does make mention of the assistance of the family physician or treating physician, which they definitely need to be support, and I truly encourage families to be more involved with the health care of their children, and this bill will help. It's a bill that's going to minimize risk for our students and improve children's lives, so I think it's a good bill to pass on second reading. Let's get it in committee next week and pass it next Thursday would be my hope. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The time provided for private members' public business has expired. We will deal first with ballot item number 64, standing in the name of Mr. Willett. Mr. Willett has moved second reading of Bill 104, an act to provide protection for minors participating in amateur sports. Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? I declare the motion carried.
The bill, deuxième lecture du projet de loi.
Pursuant to Standing Order 98J, the member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I would recommend the bill to the Standing Committee on Social Policy.
So that the bill be referred to the Standing Committee on Social Policy. Agreed? Agreed. Mr. Bisson has moved private members' notice of motion number 56. Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? All those in favor of the motion will please say aye. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. In my opinion, the nays have it. We'll take the vote at the end of private business. Mr. Urick has moved second reading of Bill 135, an act I got a typo here. An act to protect pupils with asthma. Is it the pleasure of the House that the motion carry? I declare the motion carried.
Reading of the bill, deuxième lecture du projet de loi.
Call in the members. It'll be a 5-minute bell. I thought it was a motion. Sorry, Mr. York. The bill be referred to social policy. Agreed? Agreed. Call in the members.